Hey, what's up? Welcome back to Small Account Strategies. Thanks again for stopping by. We're going to dive back into another enticing Bitcoin technical analysis video here. But before we get into the details, please give me a like and a subscribe if you like the content. If you don't like it, like and subscribe anyway. And if you hate it, you can always unsubscribe later. But anyway, let's dive into the chart here. As predicted, we started to see a pullback in Bitcoin. We are essentially waiting to see how far that pullback goes. Just looking at things from a 30,000 foot view here on the weekly, we can see our bull market support band is right around $37,000 to $36,000. Today we had a wick down to about 38.5. It's a decent wick so far. It doesn't necessarily mean that's the bottom. Do kind of hope and anticipate that things pull back a little bit further before sort of marking decent time to DCA back in or start a position or add to a position wherever you are at in your investment journey with crypto and Bitcoin. I was looking at things a little bit earlier to sort of figure out what I really wanted to cover in this video. And I'd like to sort of briefly touch on the stochastic RSI and RSI in a little bit. Those are these two technical indicators down here, the little undulating lines. We'll cover those in just a minute as they are important to the overall scope of Bitcoin and where we're at right now in the market cycle. But I wanted to see, because again, everyone's talking about the ETFs and nobody really knows what the true effect the ETFs will have on the market. Only time will tell. No one can predict like what's really going to happen there, because it's legitimately possible, I think, that with the amount of money that is slated to come in, it hasn't started pouring in quite yet, but with the amount of money that is slated to come in, that could be a game changer and essentially alter the trajectory of the chart or the price action and sort of mute any downside risk that we might have normally seen in a regular Bitcoin cycle. Now that would fly in the face of 12 years of data that we have on Bitcoin. So until something changes, we're going to operate under the assumption that Bitcoin is going to do what it has always done with these 4-year repeating cycles in the past. Because so far it's lining up that it's going to do the exact same thing that it always has done, which is retest this bull market support band before it even decides to go any higher or create a new all-time high or anything like that. So prior to really diving in here, I wanted to look back and see, was there any point in history where Bitcoin broke through the bull market support band pretty significantly, which is what it did back here in October of last year? It broke through that band pretty significantly, and then, as predicted, started to curl over and head back down toward the bull market support band to retest it. And I wanted to see, had it ever broken through the bull market support band at any period in the past without retesting that support band or going down through it even lower. And I cannot find any instance in the history of Bitcoin where we had a breakthrough from underneath the support band, a significant breakthrough, go significantly higher than that band, and then not at the very, very least, retest or touch that region before going higher. In most cases, it actually goes significantly lower than that support band. But that's why I'm saying, like, we need to see how the ETF stuff plays out, because I still have an assumption, or I'm curious, I should say, that the amount of buying that could be flooding in could potentially mute the downside. I still think there will be more downside, but I do think there is a plausible scenario where that downside is muted because of the renewed interest in the crypto space and Bitcoin in general. But as you can see, we can go back to every single breakout, every single breakthrough Bitcoin has ever had from underneath the Bitcoin bull market support band. Anytime, so let's just look at where it happened here. We were underneath the bull market support band back in 2018, 2019. We had a significant breakthrough to the upside, went sideways for a little bit, flew a little bit higher. We did not yet create an all-time high because that high was created back here in 2017, right around, the high $19,000. So we did not create a new high here. And what happened, it faded back into the support band and then ultimately actually fell through. There's a lot of FUD happening at this point in the market, a lot of fear and uncertainty and doubt. But things kind of held through that area. And then once again, we broke through in early 2020, but then the crypto crash, the black swan event that we experienced had occurred right here. So you could almost imagine how if Bitcoin was rolling back over, it might have been more of a smooth crack or like a smooth wave down, maybe would have skirted along the bull market support band and then come back up. But the crypto crash, if you were lucky enough to buy it down here, congratulations, because that was probably the best buying opportunity in the history of Bitcoin. But so came back up again, sort of retested. It sort of came close to the bull market support band, but ultimately did not touch it and went a little bit higher. Again, did not get above that previous high. But then again, it did eventually roll over and touch the bull market support band. And that's when it just completely took off and exploded on the greatest rally Bitcoin has had since its inception. So then the market tops, breaks down through the bull market support band. We grind back above it, but again, retest this band only to bounce one last time and create the all-time high, the highest price Bitcoin has ever been at, right around $68,000, $69,000. And then that's what sparked the prolonged bear market that we experienced. So then we get back below the bear market support band. We finally find resistance down here around $15,000 and then strongly break through, bounce again off the bull market support band, break through again, bounce again off the bull market support band. Here we fell through in very early summer of last year, August 2023. We actually broke through pretty significantly through that support band. I think a lot of people were expecting another bounce here because that's what had happened 2 times prior. We were like, okay, well, we're probably going to bounce off this 28,000 level, but came way down. Well, I shouldn't say way down, but we did come down here to right around exactly $25,000. And again, one last time, broke through the bull market support band pretty significantly, I would add. So again, has there ever been a time in Bitcoin's 12-year history that a major breakthrough of the bull market support band has not been met with a retest before going higher? The answer to that question is no, it has not. So what does that mean? That means, again, I am not your financial advisor. This is not financial advice. You should do your own research when it comes to monetary investing, especially in something as volatile and dangerous as cryptocurrency. But this region, the 37,000 to 36,000, I would say more like 36 personally, I would be interested in that region. And we'll be watching it very closely when we finally get down to that level. Again, it's not a guarantee that it will get down that low. There's always a percentage chance that Bitcoin could do something completely different and maybe skirt the bull market support band and maybe start to curl and go higher, and then maybe we don't touch the support band, and maybe the low is already in at 38,500. In a few months we could be looking back on this and I could be like, I really thought it was going to come down to 36 and it just never got there. You just never know. So you have to be prepared for anything. So I would be interested in that $36,000 level. Specifically, I would be very interested in anything at $35,000 or less. Honestly, all the way down to maybe as low as 32,000. I think the 200-day EMA. Let's see. Will this actually work? Actually, let's do this. Let's get rid of that. Let's just add the 200-day. 200-day SMA. Okay, so we have the bull market support band, and then we have the 200-day SMA. Now, Bitcoin has many times in the past, while it is in a bull run, because we are in a bull run at the moment. This is not a bear market. This is absolutely a bull market at the moment. Several times in the past during a bull market, Bitcoin has retested the 200 SMA. As evidenced back here in March of 2023. Just to give you an idea of time frame, my personal opinion is we entered the Bitcoin bull market right here in the very last week or the middle of January, I should say, of 2023. So it's been about a year now, almost to the day, that we have been in a bull market for Bitcoin. When it broke above this level here, that was the inception of this latest bull market. So even still, even with this bull run, you can see the trend with this little line right here that I'm tracing with the cursor. It skirted that line, but even back in March 6th of 2023, it had a pretty significant flash crash. Well, flash dip from about 22,000 all the way down to, under 20,000. And that is where the 200-day SMA was. Now, if it does this, if Bitcoin has this type of move, I would anticipate it being one of these long-legged wicks. Because everyone right now is looking for lower prices in Bitcoin. It's not often that an asset, especially Bitcoin, behaves and does exactly what everyone is expecting. Usually when the majority of people are bullish, expect a crash. When the majority of people are bearish, expect something to run. And Bitcoin follows that axiom more than most assets, I think. So there are a lot of people, a lot of fund managers, a lot of people with a ton of money sitting on the sideline right now, just licking their chops, waiting for Bitcoin to get like down here to 35,000 or lower, or that 200 EMA, or this dotted trend line, which is pretty significant. It has a lot of retested support. I mean, this is the weekly chart, and it has touched this line 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 times. So 8 different weeks it has tested this trajectory and won. Now, what's even more interesting is this trajectory is starting to line up with the direction of the 200 SMA. So let's pretend that, well, since the price is falling, the SMA is probably going to do something like that, right? I should actually draw a thinner line, so maybe... let's see. So the SMA, let's say it does something like this, right? Zoom in just a bit. This line, if it starts to curl over because the price of Bitcoin is starting to come down, it's going to meet this trend line right here. At some point, this line is not guaranteed to, but it's likely to intersect with this line. If Bitcoin over the next, let's see, where does that happen? Somewhere in the mid to late February, early March time frame, which lines up with a lot of key factors with the RSI that I'm going to touch on in a minute. This is a very interesting region right here. And where does that put us? It puts us at, from a time frame, again, this is just guessing, This puts us at a time frame at somewhere in the realm of the first week of February through the first week of March. So basically a 4-week period beginning in February and the beginning of March. Again, we could get one of these super quick wicks down and bounce up and then start to head back up. If we get this pattern here, if this pattern forms over here and we get a wick that's like a couple $1,000s, and then we get another green candle heading up that breaks through maybe a prior bump, structure right here, I would be interested in those levels right there. So that's sort of what I'm looking at least from a price standpoint, price action levels, what I'm considering keeping my eye on. I have a couple alerts set over here just to sort of track things. I do not have any orders set on any exchanges, just for transparency's sake. I'm probably going to set some up. I'm not exactly sure at what levels, but I do not currently have any orders set on any marketplaces. I should probably do that just to potentially catch a quick dip to lower levels. But, it's also possible that we form one of these structures where we almost create a U shape, comes down, retests this area, and then comes down again. So we could be hanging around this, we could be hanging around under $40,000 for a significant period of the first half of the year, if not the entire first half of the year. That's also plausible. Because now that Bitcoin has fallen under $40,000, that round number is, and the structure that it's created here, that round number is going now to act as resistance. If it continues to struggle with 40,000, it will go lower. I do not think it'll just hang around here and then go back up. I do think that buying will sort of dry up, wait for a capitulation, and then that's when the money will start to flood in. But how does this all pertain to RSI? Okay, so we are on the weekly chart. All indications, just looking at the stochastic RSI, you look at these levels where the stochastic gets up to about 80 plus, and then you got to really start looking for a rollover because buying is just so hot, so overbought that it almost has no choice but to come back down or at least go sideways for an extended period of time. So the RSI is currently at 59. That's still on the higher side. It doesn't usually hang around these levels. It usually undulates between the middle of this range, maybe dips down to the lower end of the range, and then goes back up to the higher end of the range. So from a time standpoint, if we look out about 3, 4, 5 weeks, something like that, we're getting into that region where I expect the 200 SMA to sort of maybe have a rendezvous with this trend line. And I would also fully expect the RSI to be around 50 or maybe even a little bit lower. We started an RSI trend back here in June of 2022. The RSI bottomed at right around 26, 25, something like that, and has been steadily marching upwards ever since. A few ups and downs along the way, as to be expected, but it did come down and retest this RSI trend line back here in September. It held along with our price level supports, and then the RSI shot up. Now, where RSI peaked, when it came down and formed what we're essentially looking at now as a potential downtrend in the RSI. If it gets above this level again, which is still sort of our warning area, that's where we got to be looking for a potential peak in price again for Bitcoin, at least in the midterm. So I would expect, price comes down somewhere in this region in the next few weeks, along with RSI being somewhere between, 45 and 55, something like that, or coming close to this line. This line would be an area of interest for me as well, regardless of where price is. So once the RSI comes down to somewhere around 50 to 51, or anywhere near this green line, I will be interested in that level as well. I don't know what the price of Bitcoin would be at that point because it all depends on how quickly we would get there. The RSI could come down to that level pretty much today if the price crashed. But if it happens over the course of days, weeks, months, it could take a little bit longer for us to reach that 50-ish level, if we come out to here. And at that in that case, then Bitcoin might still be above $36,000. It just all depends on the timing and the price level. So, we're looking at some other indicators to sort of look at or sort of guess what a really solid midpoint price would be. Again, I'm not going to attempt to call a bottom, but you look at where the bull market support band is now, look at how Bitcoin typically goes a little bit below that band, if not significantly below it, before going higher. I would think it's a very safe bet, a high probability that we hit, at the very least, $35,750, which is the 618 level on the, the fib retracement from this peak right here. That's this little peak that came up. That's the 618 on that retracement. And that's a pretty logical and high probability area right there. Now, if you were to place an order in that region, would you be upset if Bitcoin continued to fall to, say, $33,000, $32,000, maybe even down to this level here at 29? That's why we have to sort of expect the worst and react to what it does along the way. I could see another high probability at this 200-day SMA, which is currently 33,500. If it dips below that, I would think that there is a major amount of support at 32,000. I would put an order in at 32,000, but it would be a small order, and it would be one of those things that I would just be hoping that I could pick up a little bit of Bitcoin at those levels in a falling knife, scenario where we get a major wick down that just falls through all of these levels and gets caught right at that 32,000 mark and then spikes back up. That's the only reason I would put an order in at 32,000. I would not be looking at 32,000 to, add significantly to a position. If it comes down that low, you really have to make sure that things are okay with the overall behavior of the market. Because if we come that low, if it happens quickly, it's one thing. If it happens over the course of a few weeks and it comes down, in 3, 4, or 5 weeks, if it meets this line and falls through that region and starts to retest this and just seems like it's bleeding and nothing's stopping it, that's when you have to be careful. because that's when we might be testing lower. But if we're measuring from the original peak, which a lot of people think is the true peak, because this bounce here was more or less a dead cat bounce, which was essentially fueled by a lot of liquidity in the financial system. It should have maybe never gotten above this level, but it did. So if we're measuring from this original peak down to the bottom, these would be our fib levels here, and we're still right around that $35,000 range. So that's what I'm looking at for Bitcoin. Same thing with, so we have RSI, we have stochastic RSI. Again, you can see how this chart undulates. When these lines get up here, that means it's probably overbought and is likely to start to fade in price. And then when those lines get down here, it's likely oversold, and it might be pointing towards a region where you might want to begin buying. So because of the severity of the slope here, I am sort of expecting these lines to likely get below 20, which is this median range on the stochastic. It'll likely get below this range, somewhere down here, maybe even in the single digits. But that should, again, coincide with a mid to late February, early March range. So again, that's still, everything is pointing toward that timeline, the mid to late February to early March range, as a potential consolidation period, and a spot where we might want to look at adding to our positions. But again, we will worry about that when we get there. So I had a couple potential paths Bitcoin could take here drawn up. I think it's over a week now that I did this, and the blue one and the purple one are pretty much out of the running in terms of possibilities. The only one that's really a possibility is this orange one, and this was created to fit up against last week's weekly candle, so that's where it begins. And as you can see, so far, this scenario could play out. Now, obviously, it's not going to happen exactly like this, but this is sort of what I'm looking at. It could come down like this, or it could, do something like that. That's another plausible scenario. I have no idea what the real structure of this chart is going to be, but something where the price comes down to that mid-30 range is what all indicators and all technicals are pointing at the moment. So I think this video is long enough. First video that I've created with video of myself anyway. I wanted to start adding that feature. Probably won't be able to do it in every video depending on what time of day I record something or what my physical appearance is at the time. But again, just wanted to sort of get things set up and see how it worked out. Yeah, I don't think there's really anything else I wanted to cover for Bitcoin. We're going to wait and see how things play out here over the next few days. And again, I'll be back with an update when there's something worth talking about. Again, hope you enjoyed the content. And in the meantime, happy trading.